Listen, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. Anybody who was here 3 months ago, the weather was a lot worse. We had snow in April. So, again, thank you. So I'd like to get everything on the way here. So just like to... We okay there? Just like to introduce the speakers one by one, and maybe they can come up, if they can get up the steps and take a seat. First and foremost, Richard Walker, who's the... Richard, I'm sure you all know who he is. He's a former editor of the Sunday Herald and the National, and he's now guest editor of the National. So if you haven't subscribed, do it. And if you can sponsor anybody, sponsor people to allow them to get access and buy some papers, leave them on buses, etc. Just get them out there. Buy 2 copies each. If you're at the airport, what I do is I buy a few of them and put them in front of the Sun and the Daily Record, which are given away for nothing. So that's what I do. Secondly, we have Ross Greer. I think he got a louder round of applause than you, Richard. So Ross Greer, so youngest MSP for the Green Party in the Scottish Parliament, so I think that deserves another round of applause. Now our third guest, Alyn Smith. I believe Nigel Farage doesn't like Alyn Smith very much, but we all love him. And also I'd like to pay special thanks to someone who's got down on his knees with a headset on there, is Kevin Gibney, and he'll be streaming live tonight's event. So, just some notes before we start here. Fire exits, there's one there, through the tea room. Hopefully we won't need to use them. Toilets are out there to the left-hand side. If you need to go, too late. I think everybody's filled in the attendance register, and that's just so that we can gauge who's attending, and hopefully we can send out some information to you. Keep in touch with other events, etc. Now, what I want to stress here, that it's not hustings, okay? We're here for... I'm not stressing that to anybody in particular, it's just stressing it to the audience here, that we want to keep to the theme. The theme is obviously the topics that are going to be discussed by our guests, and the main agenda being independence, referendum 2, away from the UK government, and so on. And possibly still within the EU. Some people are for, some against. But the number one priority is independence. Let's underline that. So, again, with it being streamed live, we need to be aware that there's an audience out there, all age groups, who will be influenced by what happens here tonight and by our guest speakers. So keep it clean, keep the questions brief to the point, make them challenging questions, and enjoy yourself. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take you through the speakers. We're going to start with Richard Walker. Good start.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? First of all, genuine thank you for the kind invitation to speak tonight. It's always a pleasure to come to East Kilbride, and tonight I notched up a personal best. I found the venue after only an hour driving between roundabout and roundabout, which is 100% better than my last visit here. I'd like to start by sharing with you the results of some of my research into the big trend of 2016 and 2017. I think you'll be delighted to hear that Pokemon Go isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Scotland, though, is going its own way. Here, 2016 and 2017 should be all about building bridges. As we face the likelihood of another independence referendum, probably before 2019, when it looks likely that we would otherwise be dragged out of Europe against our will. I say probably before 2019, because if we've learned nothing else during the past few months, it is that there are no certainties in British politics these days, apart of course from the fact that Scotland will vote one way and be forced to accept the exact opposite results in a UK vote. I'm sure the Scottish Government will do everything it can to negotiate a continuation of Scotland's place in Europe while remaining part of the UK. But if, as Theresa May insists, Brexit really means Brexit, it's hard to see how that circle can be squared. And so we'll enter a campaign for Scottish independence which we must win. And to win it, we need to build bridges with those who voted no in 2014. We know thousands are now reconsidering that vote. We need to welcome them into a revitalised Yes movement, keen to articulate new reasons for independence rather than just rerun a campaign that lost relatively narrowly, but lost nevertheless in 2014. This much you know already, but being a journalist, I'm going to look specifically at what that means for our relationship with the mainstream media. I'm doing that not just because it's a world I know well, but because mainstream media is still the main way most people get their news, whether in print, online, or on TV or on the radio. That's changing. Some of you might say it's not changing fast enough, but it will be the case for the next few years, and it will be the case when we come to the next referendum. The Yes movement's relationship with mainstream media, I think it would be fair to say, has been a difficult one. I hope you agree with me that it would be better if it were less difficult for the next referendum. In 2014, only one national newspaper supported independence, and that was the Sunday Herald. The National, remember, wasn't launched until after the referendum. One of the big questions for IndyRef 2 is whether more newspapers will support it this time round, and how will we react if they do. I say only one newspaper supported independence. The rest of them opposed it with varying levels of vitriol. Some will do exactly the same next time round. I find it pretty hard to imagine the Daily Mail or the Telegraph waving the flag for independence any time within my lifetime, or at least in this universe. But others have signalled already that they might be prepared to change their stance. The Herald has specifically said that its support for the Union in 2014 cannot be guaranteed in the wake of Brexit. The Sun was widely expected to back Indy in 2014, but it didn't. Its Scottish edition supported the SNP in the 2016 Holyrood election. And yes, that was only a couple of months ago, but now it seems like a lifetime away. Whether the Sun supports independence this time round will, I guess, depend on negotiations with its London headquarters that supported a leave vote in the EU referendum and remains hostile to a sovereign Scotland. But perhaps the biggest prize for the Yes movement would be the Daily Record, whose front page vow, just days before the September 2014 vote, is widely believed to have swung the case for a no vote. After the EU referendum, the Record urged Nicola Sturgeon to hold another independence referendum in a story headlined, "You Go Girl." See what they did there? You go EU. Really clever. That move, though, could be interpreted as preparing the ground for a move for the Record to support Yes in the next referendum. Don't know about you, but I've got a little test of my ability to accept the need to build bridges and to be forgiving and to be welcoming, no matter how shitty the new converts to independence were in 2014. So J.K. Rowling, yeah, she wrote Harry Potter, welcome on board. Alec Massey, yeah, great writer, no problem. Chris Deeran, if he changed his mind, I'd swallow hard. But I'd say, welcome along. Ewan McComb, I'd swallow harder. Brian Spanner, I've got to be honest, I'd rather die. But if the Daily Record changed its mind, it would undoubtedly be a valuable ally. And if we accept that we'll never win independence without changing minds, we can't put up any barriers to those who are considering switching sides. If I'm honest with you, I'd have to say that I would probably doubt the Record's motives. I probably resent them muscling in on the Nationals' territory after we've worked so hard to survive. But honestly, this isn't about journalist egos. It's not even about business strategies or unique selling points or any of that rubbish. It's about the future of the country. It's about getting independence and doing almost anything to achieve that. So I challenge you all to consider those people you still bear grudges against from 2014. I've got lots of them. I'm sure you have too. But like the National, you've got to let them go. It won't be easy, but this is not 2014. Things have changed. To win independence, and I believe now more than ever that we will win independence, we have to start with a clean slate. You might not believe this, but there are many people within the mainstream media who are friends of the Yes movement. More individual journalists than you think are supporters of independence, even if the titles that they work for haven't yet come round to that point of view. That makes it even more important how we engage with specific journalists, by which I mean the way we talk to them on social media. No journalism is beyond criticism, nor should it be. Readers are perfectly entitled to challenge facts, assumptions, prejudices, and it's part of the huge benefit of social media that allows that to take place. But there is a difference between criticising a piece of journalism and attacking individual journalists. A few things need to be remembered. The first is that because a journalist reports a prominent person as saying something, doesn't mean the journalist believes it to be true. A classic case at the weekend, the Sunday Herald reported Scottish actor Alan Cumming as putting the blame for the Brexit vote on, quote, stupid English people, unquote. The paper got pelters. One reader said that she didn't blame Cumming for saying it, but hated the Sunday Herald for publishing it. She put on the tweet a hashtag saying, asking for trouble. It's quite hard for journalists to understand the argument against them here. It's not a journalist's job to censor quotes or to protect interviewees from any criticism their views might attract, not even to consider the effect of such views on causes, even causes they might personally support. It is their job to accurately, sometimes entertainingly, report the interview. A second point is that personal criticism in social media is almost always counterproductive. It makes the individual concerned defensive, and it almost always forces their colleagues to support them. There are many journalists trying to do a good job in currently very difficult circumstances in the Scottish media world. It's not going to make them more supportive to tell them that they're morons. Tempting as that might be. I don't mean for a minute to suggest that all the criticism of journalists is from the Yes side. You need to only see the abuse on the National and the Sunday Herald timelines to know that that's not the case. But to be honest, I don't really care how unionists are perceived. I don't give a fig how they behave. I only care yes campaigners are seen respectful even to those who abuse them. I only care about building bridges. And that has to include building bridges with the BBC. I know, it's hard. I find it hard too. But I remember talking to many individual journalists within BBC Scotland in 2014, and their sympathies lay with independence. Yet the BBC was criticised for bias in its referendum coverage, culminating in demonstrations outside its specific key headquarters. I have to say that personally, I think those demonstrations were counterproductive. I think many people found them off-putting and alienating. But that's not to say that the demonstrators didn't have a point. I found much to object to in the BBC's referendum coverage, but we need to be clear exactly what we're accusing the BBC of. Personally, I couldn't see the value in counting the number of times an interviewer interrupted politicians just to prove a bias against SNP politicians. I don't object to interviewers asking tough questions, as long as they do so of both sides. That's their job. I see no problem as rigorously analysed as a case for independence on analytical programmes. I did see problems, and political panels pitched one independent supporter against 3 or 4 pro-union commentators. I did see problems in portraying blatant lies as the truth. I remember a BBC reporter broadcasting from Edinburgh that the Royal Bank of Scotland was all set to move its headquarters out of Scotland with the loss of hundreds of jobs. That was very far from the truth. It was a better together claim, and it should have been reported as such. So I think the BBC in some ways failed Scotland. But I have to tell you, the BBC Scotland management don't agree. They don't agree at all. They genuinely believe they had a good referendum. Those demonstrations did nothing to change the BBC approach. Sides, it must mean approach the next referendum in exactly the same way. If we adopt the same tactics against them, the effect will be exactly the same. How much better to take a case with employers if necessary through the union rather than create enemies. How much better to work towards a united Scotland by concentrating on what we agree on rather than what divides us. To seek a Scotland which recognises the shared values which makes us a nation and never, ever a region. How much better to
when I mentioned questions will be at the end, just to give everybody a chance to say their piece. and then we'll have after Ross we'll have a break, teas, coffees, home baking, and then we'll come back after that break and we'll go on to Alyn. I think we're represented tonight from obviously Scottish Government, European, Westminster. Lisa Cameron has just come into the building as well, so we're doing not too bad here. Okay, I'll just pass on to Ross Greer.
Thanks very much. So in addition to being a Green MSP who was elected in May of this year, some of you might know, but to give you a bit of context for what I'm going to be talking about, I was Yes Scotland's Communities Coordinator during the referendum campaign in 2014, or starting in 2012. And part of what I'm going to talk about tonight is what went well in 2014, what we could have done better, where we did fail, where we need to improve next time, and how the context has changed, how we can win independence this time round. So let's look at where we've came to. We took independence from being something that less than 30% of the Scottish population supported to something that almost half did. More than 4 in 10 people in Scotland now support independence. That is remarkable. That was a huge achievement for us in 2014 because it was a radical proposal that we were offering, that we need to transform this country, fundamentally change where power lies. And we can't forget how much of a success that was, but we didn't win, and the point was to win, and we need to do better next time round. But we built a movement in 2 years, from 2012 to 2014. We didn't just build an official sitting in the office, constantly living the campaign for 2.5 years. And then I'd get to the bus station or the train station, and there'd be people who'd never engaged in politics before in their life arguing about what the best currency option for an independent Scotland would be, talking about childcare policy, talking about European Union membership. That was absolutely amazing. It wasn't that long ago, it was only just before the referendum, that we had the lowest levels of political engagement, the lowest levels of turnout in the UK. And exceptionally proud of. And in large part, it was because of how fundamental, how existential the question was. It was a huge question for people to think about. And once they came, I could see that up and down the country, this movement of people coming together to build. Start to finish, because we were talking about how to make Scotland better. We weren't just identifying the problems with being part of the United Kingdom, we were talking about how we could solve them, how we could transform this country, how we that contrasts a lot with traditional politics. I'm used to traditional politics on the left, socialist arguments, socialist campaigns, and admittedly that tends to be very negative. It tends to be anti-this, anti-that, anti-austerity, anti-capitalism, and those are all things I agree with, but they don't get mass engagement. It's the same with the kinds of nationalism that you see elsewhere in the world, some exclusionary kinds of nationalism. And it is also the same as a certain kind of negativity that has crept into the Yes movement since we lost in September 2014. Something on the edges that is more negative, more contemptuous than what we had during the campaign. And that needs to be gone before the next referendum. We will only... My background is in campaign management, and it is worth talking about Yes Scotland as an organisation and how the campaign was ran. There was a lot that didn't go well. So Yes Scotland had no money from start to finish. Twice it almost went bankrupt. That was not a good position to be in. The high-value donors that we thought were coming never materialised. The network of small donations on a regular basis that we thought would sustain it didn't materialise either. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And someday someone, I'm sure, will write a book on it, like Project Fear, the book on the No campaign, which is brilliant, by the way. You should all read that. Fantastic gossip, if nothing else. But there were big logistical arguments for the Yes campaigns. We didn't have a postal voter strategy, despite the fact postal voters make up a really significant portion of the electorate, and a portion that takes in demographics that we don't necessarily do as well with. When it comes to age groups, the oldest... didn't have an effective direct mail strategy. The no... 6 million people voted for independence. We had a huge, huge... so... It's 5 years if that takes a little bit longer. That's not the case anymore. The British government and the decisions it's made have forced our hand, but not in a opportunity for us. The political... doesn't matter when it comes to the UK. Of what you might call middle liberal voters. Only way to stop closing ourselves off from the rest of the world, to get out of that isolationist mindset, is to vote for independence. We have a huge... kind of voter is one about certainty and stability. The argument next option, I mean, you had Labour. This idea that if you're not absolutely sure, if you just don't want things to change, if you're afraid. Massive instability by being part of Brexit Britain. Massive instability. They've destroyed. That's now one of our arguments. If you staying within. Scotland needs transformational change. Now, and it's now the absolute opposite. These kind of communities were persuaded by the radical transformation. Broad generalizations that you'll recognize, but we can't lose the vibrancy of the 24 that campaign because they really wanted that transformation in Scotland. And the Leave vote in urban areas. This wasn't the case in rural areas, but in urban areas, the areas that Yes vote in 2014 had the highest Leave vote last month. Now, those are not necessarily the same people, but we don't actually know that for definite. So research needs to be done. Voting Leave, or was there a bit of crossover there? If you were someone who voted yes and Leave, will you vote yes again at the next referendum if that means staying in Europe? That's not an answer that we have yet, and it's an answer that we need before we get started with calling for a second referendum. And winning is a turnout game, so a lot of that really matters. You need to get everyone who voted yes in 2014 absolutely in the bank, turning out and voting, to then work on all those people you need to tip it over 50%. And that's a huge issue, especially when it's not going to be a 2.5-year campaign like it was last time. I find that inconceivable. It's going to be at most a 6-month campaign. And we have a huge tension over when that should actually be. The legal argument, we had legal advisors come to the Scottish Parliament, talk about the options for Scotland, and the legal argument's quite simple. It says, have your referendum as quickly as possible and win it so that you can get out the UK before it leaves the EU and you can stay in the EU. There's a massive tension between the legal argument that says do it immediately and the political argument, which is that we're not quite ready yet, and we need to be ready and we need to make sure that we're going to win before we call for the referendum. And that's where there's a really critical difference. A lot of people within the movement think that we can't start campaigning again for independence without calling for a second referendum. That's incorrect. We need to start campaigning for independence right now so that we can get independence to a sustainable level of support far above 50% and then call for a second referendum. If we call for a second referendum before knowing that we're definitely going to win, that's frankly just irresponsible. We need to start the campaign for independence immediately, despite the fact it's going to be at least a couple of months before we know when the vote is going to be. My bet is it'll be within the next 18 months, or it won't be for some years, and it'll be nothing to do with the European situation. I'm imagining it will be within the next 18 months, though. And we need to look at the situation that we're going to be in that vote, which is vastly different from the last one. Now, on one level, the parties are in a different position. Between the two parties last time round, we had 26,000 members. This time round, we'll have 130,000, so that's a different situation to be in. The Greens, we've gone from 2 MSPs to 6, not world-changing, but I'm delighted by that. the SNP have absolutely been transformed. We're now in a situation where instead of facing 41 Labour MPs, a dozen Liberal Democrats, etc., we now have almost all of Scotland's representation at Westminster from the Yes side as SNP MPs. We're in a totally different situation. The No campaign last time round was powered by a Labour machine that doesn't exist anymore, just doesn't exist. The major party of the Union in Scotland is the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party cannot command a majority in a high turnout referendum. Over 50% of the Scottish public do not believe in their politics and will not engage in that campaign. We have a huge advantage from that point of view, huge advantage in the logistics and the mechanics of how to run a campaign. But the circumstances have changed as well. As I said, the political argument is now bulletproof. And what are we actually offering people? Well, I believe that Scotland desperately needs to reindustrialise, particularly in West Central Scotland. Communities still devastated by what happened in the 80s, particularly in the North East, where we're seeing hundreds and becoming thousands of people losing their jobs in the oil and gas industry. We have a massive opportunity to reindustrialise this country, to become a hub of production in Europe. The UK is not going to do that. But with independence, it becomes even more essential, because an independent Scotland will inherit a massive deficit from the UK. We need to plug that deficit, and part of it is about creating this vibrant new economy. We can do that with independence. We can take a share of the UK's assets. I had a bizarre conversation at a joint parliamentary meeting a couple of weeks ago with a Tory member of the Welsh Assembly and a Labour MP from Yorkshire who couldn't believe that Scotland would have a navy. He said, "Oh, well, how would you pay for it?" I said, "Well, we'll take 10% of the UK's navy because it's ours." I said, "But no, but you can, that's our navy." I said, "Well, fine, then we won't take our share of the debt. You can have that too. We'll either take the debt and the navy, or we'll take neither." The idea that we're going to take our share of the UK's debt and not our share of the UK's assets is nonsense. I'm happy to take both or neither. There's a huge amount that we're able to do, and there's a huge amount that we're able to achieve on the world stage. Scotland could be a world-leading peacemaker. Norway is not a country that invades other countries and topples regimes in the Middle East. Norway is a country where people go to facilitate peace talks. The Colombian Civil War, which has raged for decades, is having its peace talks facilitated in Norway. Scotland can become that kind of nation. We can become a genuine campaigner for a just peace on the world stage. We can recognise Palestine. We can no longer be part of a nation that ships arms around the world and then acts surprised when people use those arms. We can be a real force for good. There's a huge amount that we can achieve with full control. We can transform our immigration and asylum policy and treat these human beings like human beings. There's so much that we can achieve there. I was at Maryhill Integration Network a couple of weeks ago, who do amazing work with refugees. Absolutely amazing. I came away raging because they had a couple of them come and talk to me about their situation. A woman who was 63, she fled Zimbabwe 15 years ago, and she's just been told by the Home Office that they're going to be sending her back. That's a woman who's 63 years old. She's destitute. She lives on a different couch every couple of days. She has diabetes, and that woman's just been told that they're going to send her back to Zimbabwe. And I came away so angry, because despite the fact that I'm one of the 129 people elected by the people of this country to run this country, there's nothing I can do to help her. There's nothing the Scottish Government can do to help her. We can put pressure on a UK government that just does not care what we think. With independence, we can treat everyone who wants to call this country their home with the basic dignity that they deserve. We can create a welfare state, a social security system that protects everyone, especially those in the most need. We can be really bold with that. We can look at ideas like a universal basic income. We can transform how we value everything that happens in this society. There's so much we can achieve with independence. That vision, those many different visions that we had in 2014, they need to come back to the fore. The debates that we were having about currency options, the debates that we were having about what was best for pensions, about foreign policy, economic models, that is what needs to come back, because we need to offer people a compelling vision for how we're going to transform this country for the better. That's how we're going to win the next referendum. That's how we need to start campaigning right now.
Could listen to you all night, Ross. Absolutely fantastic. Alyn, you've got a wee bit to sort of get your notes together and see if you can beat that performance. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Listen, the bar's open. Teas, coffees, home baking. You better start the stampede now. Back in about 15-20 minutes. And obviously bathroom break as well. Thank you. All stop, Kevin. Kevin, set up. Whilst everybody's taking their seats, I just want to mention some events that are coming up and some of the stalls out there. There's actually a stall there about Langlands Moss. I think there was some damage done in some fire recently. So I think, you know, we're trying to address the problem, trying to get people a bit more involved with it. So if you're out there, there are leaflets, you know, try and get yourself involved. Very important piece of East Kilbride in Scotland as well, obviously from a green ecological perspective. There's a stall out there about fracking, so please pick up your leaflets, leave your details, get a bit more involved. Some of the other events, there's actually, well, I'm sure most of you will know about the event on Saturday, March for Independence. It's leaving the Botanic Gardens at 10 AM. There's an anti-trident march on 6th of August at East Kilbride bus station. Roddy, it says here to the CND tree, but what is the CND tree? Right. Great, thanks Roddy. And as I mentioned there, a local event, the Friends of Langlands Moss, there's a meeting on Saturday the 17th September. I'm sure wherever that meeting is, maybe somebody knows where that meeting is. At Langlands Moss. Okay, right. And is it the entrance beside the golf course, or? Yep. Right. Okay. So that's the 17th of September. Currency options for independent Scotland. And that's in Rutherglen, Glencairn venue, 6:30 for a 7 PM start. That's Tuesday, 25th of August. I'm sure there's been cards being given out. Is there cards there at the desk? Yep, plenty down here. So please, you know, make time to have a look at the stalls and pick up some of the leaflets and buy some badges, some T-shirts, etc. There's another fundraiser on the 8th of October. I think, again, that's for Langlands Moss. I think that's the majority of them. Now, pass on to our MEP hero. I think everybody has seen the Just from a personal note, I work for a global company. I won't mention the name, but there's a lot of EU employees sat around me, and they are, I'll be quite diplomatic in my words here, they're shitting themselves about the whole Brexit thing. It doesn't matter whether you're for or against it, but these folk are here, they've settled in Scotland, they're working in Scotland, they've been to uni in Scotland, and they're worried. And when I showed them that video, you know, it's helped them. And they believe, they truly believe that the people of Scotland are behind them. And one or two of them have mentioned to me that they voted no, or they would have voted no in the referendum because they wanted to remain part of the UK and British passport, citizenship, whatever. But now they're all saying they will vote for independence because they don't like the way they're being treated. So whether you're pro-EU or against it, you know, we've got to look out for these folk who have came to Scotland and gave up everything in their homelands and working away and raising families here. Myself, probably everybody in this room has got a relative in Canada or Australia, done exactly the same. I've got 4 generations of family in Canada. And, you know, my uncle left East Kilbride 50 years ago. And there's hundreds of them over there now, different parts of the family. So these people, yes, they had 6 daughters. 6 daughters. For anybody who's from East Kilbride and as a local, he's named Richard McShane, Richard and Patsy McShane. But 6 daughters. But there's also my Aunt Patsy's sister went as well, and they had a big family. They were from Cleland, and and there's Dutch, there's Greeks, they've spread their seed across Canada. Too much information. Anyway, Alyn, it's all yours.
Oh, well, thanks very much indeed. Follow that, eh? It's easy, Tiger. Thanks so much for the invitation. I really do appreciate getting back to East Kilbride. Great to be here again, to see so many. Tell you what, do we need this for the live stream? I'm a Glaswegian. I can shout in public really easily. There we are. A shout out to the folks at home. Well, it's great to be back. I've been working with and for Linda Fabiani, your cracking MSP, for a number of years. I see we've got Lisa Cameron as well, working hard for us down in Westminster. You've got your team of councillors plugging away for us in the council. And I'd pick up on Richard's phrase, that we're in the business of building bridges. We're in a time where we need to build bridges. I'll give you one of my own, which was stolen from Jim Mather, who was Enterprise Minister in the first SNP government, 2007. He came up with my favourite phrase for the SNP, my favourite phrase for Scotland. It's that the SNP is a team game, and Scotland is a team game as well. We share in each other's successes, and we support each other through the tougher times. Because the greatest source of inspiration and support of any nationalist for Scotland is us, other nationalists for Scotland. Because we cannot rely on the establishment, we cannot rely on the media, we can increasingly rely upon the people of Scotland to be looking at us with fresh eyes. But the greatest source of inspiration for the Yes movement is us, the Yes movement, with all our political badges, with all our causes, with all the things that keep us motivated and enthusiastic. So it's great to be back. But I'd open with a note to the times we live in. We live in really tough times. And there are a lot of very anxious people out there. I see that in my constituency mailbag all the time. Ross will be seeing the same. There are a lot of people really frightened. And it's not too strong a word to say frightened. We see wars in the Middle East. We see a refugee crisis. We see terrorism on a what seems like almost daily basis. We see various aspects of the media who seem to be in the business of terrifying people rather than informing them. And it's working. There are a lot of really anxious, nervous people in Scotland today. People who are looking to us in politics and us in the Yes movement for encouragement, for reassurance, for leadership. So we have got a job in these troubled times. People who voted no in the last referendum, decent, thoughtful, intelligent people who voted no in the last referendum, did so on the basis of promises that they received and they took seriously from authority figures who were serious and credible people. People who voted no in order to safeguard the mining industry, to safeguard the shipyards on the Clyde, to keep the price of food down, to safeguard the pound, to safeguard our European status. Well, they can now. And it is our job as the Yes movement to refrain from crowing, gloating, I told you so. It is our job to let them come to us by being open, transparent, attractive. Not just physically attractive, though you're a bonny looking bunch, I have to say. Seriously. But attracting people and persuading people that the best option for Scotland is independence. Because not everybody's there yet. And a lot of people, when they're feeling scared and frightened, they go for the status quo. They don't want new ideas. They don't want challenged. So we must be really aware of the dynamic that we live in. We must be really aware that there is a debate ongoing. We must be really aware that people are looking at us with fresh eyes. And you are, each and every one of you, an ambassador for the cause. Act like it. Be kind. We will attract people to our cause by doing what we do, by caring about the communities we live in, caring about the future of Scotland, caring about our fellow human beings, our neighbours, wherever they may be found. We have got an amazing opportunity in these troubled times, because Brexit has changed everything. It's changed everything within Scotland in terms of the political dynamic, and it has changed everything across the continent of Europe and wider. And I made a speech in the European Parliament. I've been making speeches in the European Parliament for 13 bloody years, but this one, everybody noticed this year. And I wasn't actually due to speak. The speaking time in the Parliament's organised very rigidly, and it's translated into the 23 official languages, and we're not a spontaneous place, which is sometimes where we're difficult to cover. But as the debate started, and I saw what Nigel Farage was doing. Now, Nigel Farage is an intensely clever politician. He's good at what he does. He knows what he's doing. He's not a rude man. He's quite personable. He's very personable, actually. So to see him giving a gratuitously offensive speech, saying the MEPs have never done a proper day's work, etc., you're corrupt, all of that, he was looking to provoke a reaction. Because there was MEPs going around that very debate saying we need to shut down the UK MEPs right now to deprive him of a speaking slot. And it is an objective, difficult question. Why should I have a vote and a say on laws that are, at least at present, not going to affect my citizens? So that was live within the room as he was making that speech. So I ran down, I saw what was happening, I said, visceral, I'm not letting him speak for my country. I'm not letting him be the face of these islands. Because that was what he was going for. And I ran down to Philippe Lambert, a Green MEP, great guy, our co-president within the group. I clapped my hand on his shoulder, and I left bruises apparently with that. I really need to close this debate, mate. I say, yeah, great, good, do it. And then I did my stuff. And you saw the reaction. It was a moment of positivity within a really bleak, angry day. And the sense of hurt, the sense of rejection, the sense of, what the hell have you just done? Blank incredulity from my MEP colleagues and else. And suddenly there was a voice that said, yeah, hang on, we actually do want to be part of this. And don't underestimate the importance of the change in dynamic across the European capitals. Lots of people in 2014 at home didn't quite get the why we needed to be independent. Lots of people across the capitals of the European Union also didn't get the why we wanted to be independent. Now that's because often the case for independence was articulated via the London media, the London diplomatic networks, and they viewed us with London's baggage. It was also because we hadn't done the evangelism. They ken new too. And there are people across all the countries of Europe, and people within the institutions at Brussels, who are looking at Scotland as a good news story at a time when the EU could really do with one. The EU has had its challenges of late. And if it didn't exist, I still think we'd need to invent it, but it's had a tough time. But the fact that you've got a small, resource-rich, prosperous, from the perspective of many European nations, peripheral part of these islands saying, yeah, hang on, we do want to be part of this club, this family, is an incredibly successful thing for Europe to grab onto. So the psychology has altered. We've even got mood music as well. It's all changed. It's all different. Soaring strings there. It's marvelous. But we're all Democrats. And we can't rerun a vote. We cannot question democracy. 52% of the people of these islands voted to leave the EU on a campaign that was based on lie after lie after lie after lie, that patently didn't want or expect to win, that lied on the side of a big red bus but then denied it within hours of actually winning. The people who brought the UK to the edge of the abyss and fell over, nowhere to be seen. Exposed for the shower of shysters and charlatans they are. Shame on them. Shame on them. As I say, you can't second guess or rewrite democracy. A decision was taken, a decision was made. I was doing an interview for Huffington Post last week where he was really pressing me hard on the way, but surely we should just redo the vote, we should just rerun it. And I was, well, no. We won the vote in my country. And we have got a genuine philosophical question here, which people get. Trust people with the information and trust people to make a choice. People will rise to the occasion. 62% of my country voted to remain within our family of nations. And I demand that that be respected, because we're all Democrats. So the people of the UK and the people of Scotland have set all of us in politics and all of us in public life a real challenge. So I am talking about status, not membership. Because if you're talking about status, membership, you're having a very narrow defined range of discussion. If you're talking about status, it's a much more hazy concept where you get to talk about one state, two systems. You get to reach out to Northern Ireland, you get to reach out to London, which also voted convincingly to remain. You get to reach out to Gibraltar, because freedom of movement is existential for Gibraltar in a way that it's close to all our hearts. But if Gibraltar doesn't get a system that involves freedom of movement, Gibraltar goes back to a fishing village in short order. So there is real constitutional issues that have been thrown up into the air by this. And the only functioning bits of the UK in the days after that vote were the Bank of England, fortunately, under the Canadian Mark Carney, and the Government of Scotland. As Westminster descended in chaos and farce on both sides of the House of Commons, demonstrating the calibre of people involved in politics in that place. And I use that word quite deliberately. Demonstrating just how dysfunctional a democracy runs these islands, based in a palace by the Thames that should have been turned into a museum many years ago. But we had, by contrast in Scotland, a calm, credible, powerful stateswoman at the helm of the nation. And I have never been more proud to be a member of the SNP and a member of the Yes movement and a nationalist for Scotland than when I saw Nicola Sturgeon come out of Butte House on that day and make her speech. And the first priority was to reassure EU nationals in Scotland, you are part of our community, you are valued, we celebrate your presence, and Scotland will keep you safe. This was the message. This was the message people needed to hear. And my phone started ringing and texting and messages immediately thereafter. And I got a message from a very, very, very senior Commission official. Thank you so much for your First Minister's message. I very much appreciated it, as does my daughter who studies in Glasgow University. How can I help? That right there is the microcosm of the change in the dynamic that we have in our discussions with our European friends and colleagues. And what we're going to do going forward is not set. This is not our back door to independence. We didn't ask for this. We didn't want this. We campaigned against Brexit. We voted against Brexit. Nobody, nowhere, can accuse the SNP government of having engineered this situation. But we have a plan, and we will do what's best for Scotland. That is our North Star. That is what we're in business to do. And we'll reach out to our friends and colleagues in other parties, and we will work together. And it was really powerful also that the Scottish Parliament united as an institution by, what was it, 98 votes to 0? The Tories abstained, which was a result, to back the Scottish Government's European engagement strategy, to back the push to respect Scotland's demand to remain within the European framework, whatever those words mean. And this is where we have an opportunity. But if you take nothing else away from what I'm saying tonight, reach out to EU nationals that you know, because they're new Scots. They're part of our community now, and they are, as sure as I am standing here, going to be part of our community going forward. We will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. Reassure them that we are on the job, that we are working on this tirelessly. Because there are a lot of anxious people out there. I've seen students, I've been in contact with students who are scared about taking up a place at a Scottish university because they're not quite sure what their rights are going to be. I've heard from university researchers who aren't able to be part of future collaborative projects based out of Scotland because they're not sure what our status is going to be. We must reassure people, and we must lead the discussion and the debate. So in terms of what's coming next, from a Scottish Government perspective, we're going through the gears. I'm increasingly talking about quantum constitutional theory. I've had my guys look at everywhere across the European Union that has status, which is different. It's the Faroe Islands, it's the Åland Islands, it's New Caledonia, it's French Polynesia. I'm looking forward to some fact-finding trips, I have to say, to some of these places. It's Greenland, it's all the scenarios that we can work through, we will work through. And once we have that discussion with Brussels, the doors which we have blown open remain open. Because there is still a reticence to get involved in a discussion about independence, but there is a real willingness to get involved in a discussion about status. So that's the turf that we're going to be discussing. And if some people in the Yes movement would want us to go faster and stronger towards independence, it's on the table because it needs to be, and it must be, because what self-respecting government wouldn't have all the options on the table? But we need to till the soil. And we need to till the soil in Scotland, and we need to till the soil in Europe also. We are doing that. And that's where we rely on you guys in the wider Yes movement to be out there, be visible, be active. Let people come to you for the conversation that allows them to admit they were misled, allows them to admit they were told stories, allows them to express how angry they are that they believed what they were told. And if there's the slightest bit of I told you so, you shut it down overnight like that. So go and know. We have got an opportunity right now. And the Scottish Government has established a standing council on Europe. Nicola has established a panel of real experts. It's the former UK judge of the European Court of Justice. It's the former chief scientific advisor to the European Commission. It's various other people who have real expertise within this. I'm privileged to be part of it myself. We will be bringing forward options for discussion for Scotland because I believe the people of Scotland need the information to make a choice about what's going to be in our best interest. And we will test all the options. We will set all the options out. And I trust the people to choose. So it's going to be a long, hot summer. And in terms of where the wider Yes movement is going to go, I'll briefly make a party political point. Not everybody here, I appreciate, is SNP. A fair few of you might be. The party is going to have a depute leadership contest over this summer. It looks like there's going to be 4 candidates for strong, distinct propositions. And we're going to be putting forward ideas about how we cohere the different parts of the SNP, cohere the Yes movement, involve people in the discussion about what sort of country we want to be. I think it's actually a really exciting debate for us to be having right now in these times. I'm making sure that I will be using the National and Sunday Herald to make sure that that's the forum where this discussion will be had. And if you're not an SNP member, still get involved, because Scotland is a team game and we are not short of ideas. So we have got a unique opportunity before us right now. But take away 2 things tonight. Be kind and be out there. If you're looking in Yes East Kilbride, and I can't tell you what's best for you in East Kilbride about how to organise, how to get back out there, what to sell, what message you want to be pushing, there's nothing stopping you. There are people who want to have these conversations, looking for people. Remember during the referendum, when people would cross the street to come and have a conversation, often an argument. That's out there again. And it's out there again with an entirely different dynamic. All we need to do for now is be visible, be open, be kind, be attractive, and you're already doing that. we've got a great chance. And we're going to need to work really, really hard. But Scotland is a team game. And I know I can rely on you. You can rely on me as well. Thanks very much.
Hi, if you have any questions for Alyn, just stick your hand up and I'll come round to the mic. Yep.
Hi, my name's Bobby Russell. I'm part of SNP. I keep getting asked, I run a driving school, right, called Freedom. I keep getting asked from my pupils, do we need to go to the Westminster Parliament, cat in my hand, can we get independence, please? Or can Nicola just say, right, we're doing it? Can we?
There is absolutely nothing going to hold the people of Scotland back. The people of Scotland are sovereign. End of. And it would be a brave Tory Prime Minister that would try and stand in the way of the Scottish Parliament if the Scottish Parliament decides that now is the time to have that referendum. And this is my point about going through the gears and going through all the options. Because people need to believe and accept and decide that independence is the best option. But I'm utterly confident in the good sense of the people of Scotland, with the facts, with the information. And we're not going to ask for our independence, we're going to take it.
Dougie Malloy, I would address my question to both the editor of the National and I touched to Alyn as well. To the editor of the National, I would say this to you as far as papers are concerned. A man called Max Aiken, who subsequently became Lord Beaverbrook, said he bought the paper for one reason only, for his influence to go forward, for the lies, damn lies, and statistics. Now, it is good and actually talk about this kindness, but being truthful about it when you actually look, and it's a wee bit of departure for ourselves in there, but the word that holds it up is demonisation of individuals. You see it with Corbyn, and you ain't seen nothing yet, by the way, when we go again to look for independence. So I would hope actually, although we want to be kind and considerate to the good people, I also hope actually we don't fall into the trap of being too kind to the people who wishes bad and identify these people whose side they're really on. To Alyn, it's a simple but a complicated one as well. We get done the last time actually quite simply with Project Fear, and the one that jumped out for all to see to the basic and fundamental, what currency are we going to use? And it went for anything that you're no getting it, said Barroso. By the way, he's working with Goldman Sachs now, I picked up on that one. You're no getting it, you can't have it, and if you do have it anyway, we're going to tie it to the Bank of England. I do hope, in two fronts actually, in that clarity of that issue, go for a macaroon, go for a groat, call it what you will, as long as it's worth £1.50 and theirs is worth £1, I don't care.
Okay, I'll take the question to me first. When I argue to be less abrasive, I guess, to some journalists, I'm not for a second suggesting that we accept the rubbish that many newspapers inflict on us. I think we absolutely have to call that out. I think we absolutely have to point out when they are lying to us or when their reports are coming from a place of mistaken beliefs. Or worse than that, are absolute attempts to try and deflect us from what we're trying to achieve. But I think there's a way of doing that, and I think the way of doing that isn't to attack individual journalists, many of whom are going to be sympathetic to us. And I think if you extend the hand of friendship to them and you get them on side, you will achieve more. It's all about achieving. It's not really about venting. It's not really about attacking people to make yourself feel better, although it does make you feel better, I know that. But it's not about that. It's about achieving what you're trying to achieve. And what you're trying to achieve, what we're all trying to achieve here, is to get as many people on side as possible, because we have to get them to vote for independence. And it's really as simple as that.
Your simple but complicated one about the currency, you were half right. I read in the Sunday Herald, and that was how I heard about it, that some of our Westminster guys are looking at options on this, as I would fully expect to be the case. We've got people with resources to access research, and it's right we should look at all the options. I'll confess I'm actually quite relaxed about the question. Currency for me is a matter of total pragmatism. It's about what's going to work. And what's going to work, I think, for now, needs to be left an open question, because the world is moving really fast. There's lots of people who thought that sterling was a safe and solid currency. Well, anybody who's going to the continent and changing it into euros at the moment is realizing exactly how these things work. So I think there is a shifting political discussion about this. There's also a shifting economic discussion about what's going to suit us best. So it's a trap I'd urge you all not to fall into. That, why tie our hands? Why argue about the colour of the curtains when the roof's on fire? We are living in such a dynamic flux, politically, economically, in almost every sense. People want certainty and they want clarity, but I think the only honest answer is we will bring forward that proposition for debate and for discussion at the proper timing. So, meantime, let's have a discussion about all the options that we've got. That's healthy. But why tie our hands at the moment? For me, it is about pragmatism.
That's a good point there. The questions don't need to be just for Alyn, they can be for any of the panellists. So I'll kind of try and work my way over the sides here.
Philip Green's getting away with robbing thousands of people. Now, he's getting away with that because the laws were made for the aristocracy. Are we going to please say we're not having the Queen?
I suppose that's quite an easy question for me. I and my party went into the last referendum saying that no one's born to rule, and an independent Scotland should have a head of state chosen by the people of Scotland. Whether that head of state takes on serious executive powers like a US president, whether they're a ceremonial head of state like an Irish president, doesn't matter. We should get to choose. It should not be about a quirk of birth. It should not be about preserving the massive wealth and privilege of the aristocracy. And what really frustrates me about that argument is when people say to you, oh, but it's not her fault. It's like, don't feel sorry for the most privileged person on earth. Like, it's just a nonsense. But the issue is that that's an exceptionally tricky, it's an exceptionally politically live issue. And I did actually support the position the SNP and the Scottish Government took in the last referendum, which was to not include it in the prospectus that you would get upon day one of independence, because I think that's a distinct choice the people of Scotland need to make. And what I would argue for is a yes vote, and the first thing that I would do in the election that would be the immediate follow-up to becoming independent is in that election, it would be up to the parties to put it in their manifesto to say, we will have a referendum on the kind of head of state you want. Because independence in itself is so vastly complicated, so full of so many different issues. That one's really, really distinct. The process of building a new nation doesn't begin and end on the day between 7 in the morning and 10 at night where we vote for independence. It's a process. The drafting of our constitution, because Scotland could have a written constitution that enshrined our rights, that's a long-term process that needs to involve the entire country in a whole new conversation. These are choices that we can make as an independent Scotland. And in an independent Scotland, I will be fighting for an independent workers' republic, because that's what I believe in. But that is a choice for us to make upon winning the ability to actually make it.
just on Philip Green in terms of the way he's behaved, it is absolutely disgraceful, and shame on him. But shame on the people who passed the laws that allowed him to do it. And this is where I'm if you go back far enough, I'm a corporate finance lawyer trained in the City of London. I've been off the tools longer than I care to admit, but that was what I used to do. And we have seen deliberate reforms to tax policy that have encouraged a race to the bottom, that have encouraged industrial scale tax evasion. It's now part of a company's business strategy. It's not a wee add-on to bump up the numbers for the annual report. It's part of why they're doing business. So if we allow our economy to adopt that model, to an extent we can't blame Philip Green and people like him for taking advantage of it. Shame on him, absolutely. But who are the people who made these laws? How did they get to where they were? Who are they accountable to? The point about Jose Manuel Barroso, the deeply dreadful former Commission president, now working for Goldman Sachs. There is a deeply unhealthy trend in the UK's, and I'd use the term deliberately, democracy, in terms of who are the people who are elected actually working for. And we've seen Tory and Labour encouraging a race to the bottom and industrial scale tax evasion, which has become part of how a lot of companies do business, and we as citizens are losing out over it. And then you'll hear a single transferable railing against tax evasion. We're going to crack down on tax evasion, says every single party at every single election. Well, surely we need to be asking some questions about why they haven't done it yet. And I think we'll have a better shift with tackling that stuff in Scotland, across all the parties, than we ever will out of a dysfunctional democracy in a palace by the Thames.
I guess I would say to that question is there's many things that I would want an independent Scotland to do. I would want it to outlaw salaries of millions of pounds when we can't. Our benefit system doesn't let people heat their homes. I think that's ridiculous. There are many things I would want to change in the monarchy personally as one of them. But if we were to make sure that we have plans for that before we go for independence, we'd be here forever. What I believe is that people of Scotland will take the right decisions when they have the power to take those decisions, and a vote for independence is simply a vote for, you know what, a whole bunch of work. What we're volunteering for is a huge amount of work, and the reason we're volunteering to do that is to build a better country. And I believe that we will take all those right decisions when we have the power to do so. But the first thing to do is get that power.
What you guys done during the Yes campaign gave this country hope like it's never had before, so well done in that. Secondly, for a lot of people, the Yes campaign just didn't stop. It continued, and it does continue very strongly. There's groups like National Yes Census, a group I'm involved with, Yes too, that are really, really strong, and they're helping each other out. My question to both you and Alyn is, see, rather than think, oh, how can we relaunch the Yes campaign from our position, I'd like you guys to consider coming to us and saying, what can we do and how can we facilitate what you already have?
I agree with that, absolutely. I mean, the best thing I've done in my life was communities coordinator for Yes Scotland, getting to go around the country and set up all these groups, and to see so many groups that are still there. The best part about during the campaign was finding groups that existed that we had no idea about in the campaign headquarters, that had just gone off and done it by themselves. It was amazing. It was a movement. And you're right, it still exists. And for the Yes campaign to come together again in a more organised form, and there's a legal necessity. Referendums need to have a lead campaign organisation on either side. But you're right, we started the campaign with a philosophy that this will start from the ground up. It'll be won by conversations between neighbours, friends, family members, and that has to happen on that local level. So yes, absolutely. The way Yes Scotland started last time round, far from perfect, very far from perfect. And what it built was really successful because it built the grassroots organisation, but it started right at the top. This time around, there's no need to do that because the movement is there, and it will be the movement that establishes that formal central office that organises all the legal stuff and prints the leaflets, etc. But it's the people who have kept going, the people who have kept the flame alive, who will win the referendum the next time round. I cannot express enough my appreciation to you for having done that.
Seconded all of that. As I'm travelling the length and breadth of Scotland, as I do out on the European campaigning for the SNP, the people that I see of all politics and none who are making incredible personal sacrifice to build that network, to build that better community, to do the stuff we need to do. I mean, that was my point earlier on, that the best source of inspiration and encouragement for the Yes movement is us, the Yes movement. And as I also mentioned, the SNP is going through the deputy leadership process, and there's a lot of ideas are going to be coming forward from that. Be part of that conversation. Write a letter into the National, write an article for the National. What do you need? I'm looking to the rest of you. You keep doing what you're doing. The political parties will have a role to play in this, and that's not to be denigrated. There's also scope for people who are not wanting to get involved in a political party to be involved in this. I have to say, one of the joys of the Yes campaign was that the SNP certainly had been tilling the soil for longer than lots of people. But the fact that it then grew wings and soared was a joy for us to see. So that needs to be balanced. And we need to balance that energy, but also, to my mind, using the SNP as the organisational network and backbone, because 1 in 38 of the adult population of Scotland carries a party card. Yeah, there's our network right there. And I think we should step up and support and facilitate the activities of others in that sort of way. Now, how that works is going to need to be horses for courses. I'll be bringing forward some ideas about that sort of stuff, but I think we've got a few months period where we can have a really dynamic discussion about what needs to be done for that. So now is the time, absolutely.
Sorry, just to say we've got time for 3 more questions, and I've got 2 here, and then Dr. Lisa Cameron, MP, wants to ask one, so that'll be all the kind of questions over after that, I'm afraid, sorry.
Thank you. Most of us will remember that in 2014 the Westminster organisations lied to us about steel industry. As soon as the vote was in, they lied about how important we were to the membership of the UK, and within minutes the result coming in, David Cameron introduced evil. But there's one other lie which you all know about, is Brexit. Now that's history from 2 years ago, but I heard the same lie last week, and I've heard Murdo Fraser, Conservative MSP, I heard that David Coburn, UKIP man, come out with it, and I'm sure you all probably heard it, but you may not have realised it. What did they say? Oh, but we told you in 2014 that there would be a referendum, and there was a chance. Now, I'm sure quite a few folk here have heard that, but they've now said, oh, no. And what it is a rewriting history. They're saying, oh, no, in 2014 we said there'd be a referendum. Rubbish, because don't forget, David Cameron didn't have a majority in 2014. There's no way the Liberals were going to support it. It was never in any manifesto. Right? So if my question to here, especially the panel, is if anyone hears that same, if anyone says, but you don't deserve a referendum, an independence referendum, because Brexit might have been a possibility in 2014, it wasn't.
The problem with lying to an entire population is you can only really get away with it once. And they got away with it once, and we're back. They're not going to be able to do it again. If I was the SNP that published last week a list of Better Together lies that had since been smashed, proven to be completely untrue, they can't do all that again. And that's going to be a huge advantage to us. Our case for independence has only got stronger since 2014. Everything we said in 2014 is true, and on top of that, we have everything that's happened since. Their argument has been decimated by their own stupidity, by their own unwillingness to deal with problems within their own parties. There was only a European referendum because David Cameron couldn't handle the right wing of his own party. They're just not going to be able to get away with it a second time because everything they said is just objectively untrue. We don't even need to produce leaflets. We don't need to knock on doors and say to people that, by the way, what they said last time around was wrong, voting no didn't keep you in Europe. It's just patently obvious and everyone knows it. The next referendum is going to be fought on completely different ground from the last one, ground that we have built. They've destroyed their argument. We've strengthened ours. If we can't win under these circumstances, what circumstances can we win under?
I'd echo a lot of that. So my point earlier, there's a lot of decent, thoughtful, intelligent people in Scotland re-examining their own views on this. We need to let them come to us. We need to attract them to us. And allow them to have that conversation, be visible, be open, be honest, be attractive. There you go, say it again. The dynamic has changed. And fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. That there are a lot of people in Scotland looking at this stuff with fresh eyes, and we need to be ready for that opportunity. And if there's the slightest hint of gloating, we lose it. Can't stress that enough.
I think what you said about the matters you raise is true of the entire Project Fear. Because quite apart from the fact that who is going to do Project Fear Part 3, because there's nobody left standing, it will be Project Fear Part 3. We saw once in the independence referendum, we saw again in the EU referendum. We are completely across those tactics. Not only do we know that the claims were not true, we know how they manipulated things, we know what emotions they played on to make people vote no. We are completely wise to those tricks, and we will never fall for them again.
Is it on? Yeah. This is to Ross and Alyn. Is TTIP more or less likely after Brexit?
There we go. To my mind, it's more likely. And Boris Johnson said 2 days ago, and it wasn't reported widely because who's paying attention to what he's saying anymore, but I'm one of the few people who is. He said quite explicitly, we'll now be free to do a proper TTIP with the US. And this was one of the things that grieved me about the European referendum, that the idea that the bunch of neocons and shysters in UKIP were suddenly anti-TTIP was just not a serious proposition. Now, we've batted our heads against TTIP, myself especially, for years on this, and we're able to find common cause with the French, the Dutch, the Germans, the Slovenians, the Slovakians, because TTIP for the EU cannot and will not happen unless and until the democratically elected member state governments agree and the democratically elected MEPs agree. And the biggest cheerleader for TTIP has been the UK government. So now, instead of being able to rely upon the French to have a similar position to us on agriculture stuff, the Dutch to have a similar position to us on biotech stuff, the Danes to have a similar position to us on fisheries stuff, the discussion about TTIP will begin and end in the House of Commons. And the Tories will sign us up to TTIP on steroids on stilts in short order. So the EU was actually our biggest defence against the worst of TTIP. And it grieves me that we've lost those allies. Now, how things are going to go in terms of what trade deals the UK can or cannot do, all of that remains to be seen. But we've already seen a number of the neocons, the Dan Hannons, the people who call themselves the thinkers of the Tories, salivating at the idea of what they can do. And it'll be a race to the bottom in bargain basement Britain, because they know their pals will make money out of it. And we should all be really nervous about that prospect.
Sorry, I'm just wondering, just briefly before you go on, is it maybe worthwhile actually explaining TTIP just very briefly for anyone who's maybe not sure in the audience?
Yeah, so incredibly briefly, TTIP stands for Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. It's a proposed trade deal between the European Union and the US. And the idea of it is to harmonise regulation. The problem with harmonising regulation between Europe and the US is the US basically has none. You can bleach meat in the US to resell it. Workers have barely any rights, and the environment has barely any rights. Private companies can do whatever they want because America doesn't have a public health service, for example. So by Europe harmonising with the US, what we're doing is allowing US companies to come in here, potentially sue national governments who enact legislation that would harm their profit margins, and do things like privatise the NHS, remove food standards, safety, etc., etc. Massively harmful to almost every area of government policy, almost every aspect of our life. So it's a huge threat. And Alyn's absolutely right. The UK on its own will absolutely negotiate worse trade deals than TTIP. But they will do it not just because they believe firmly in an economic ideology that's totally discredited, but also because they're really, really not good at this. The minister responsible for negotiating the UK's trade deals is going to be Liam Fox. That's shamed former cabinet minister Liam Fox, who's now back to being cabinet minister Liam Fox, just in a slightly different job. This is a man who has no understanding of it. David Davis, our Brexit minister, was talking about how Britain could negotiate a trade deal with Germany. This is our Brexit minister who doesn't understand how Europe works. We can't negotiate a trade deal with Germany. The point of being in the European Union is it's a single market. You negotiate a trade deal with Europe, not individual member states. The Brexit minister doesn't understand how this works. These are the people negotiating on our behalf. And this is after 40 years of Britain not having to negotiate trade deals itself. We have no infrastructure to do it. There were experts appearing before the Parliament's European Committee this morning warning that, former people who used to work there actually, saying there is no capacity within Whitehall to negotiate these trade deals. Everyone, every individual from Britain who has experience of negotiating trade deals works in Brussels and will continue working in Brussels for Brussels. There's no one on this side. Could you imagine our ideologically driven, inexperienced neocons going up to negotiate a trade deal with the colossal American lobbying industry for pharmaceuticals, their construction industry, their healthcare industry, these kind of people? Not only are we going to come out with a trade deal that's ideologically disastrous, but it's just going to be flat out imbalanced towards the people who are actually good at negotiating it, and it wouldn't be the people negotiating on our behalf. The only way to protect ourselves from trade deals like that is to stay in the European Union, have our own seat at the table, and the ability to veto these trade deals, because that's what being a member state would give us the ability to do.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to say just how really proud I am to be here tonight. East Kilbride is a yes town, and we should all be proud of that. I think yes and independence means three things for me. It's about our people, our country, and our future. And how important does the panel feel that it is that we as a movement reinvigorate the discussions about our future, our hopes, our fears, how Brexit is affecting our businesses, our health service, our communities, our industry. How important is it that we get really engaged and involved in taking forward these discussions as a community right across Scotland. We don't win very much from Westminster, so it's also a small plug at the end before you answer my question. But I am hoping that we will win one small thing this year. My rescue dog, Rossi, is a finalist from Dog of the Year for Westminster Dog of the Year. So if you can take 2 minutes also to click on my Facebook and vote for Rossi, the rescue dog, because, you know, it's not very often a rescue dog wins Westminster Dog of the Year. And it would be great if it was our rescue dog from Bothwell Bridge, from this area and also from Scotland. So thank you, and thank you to the panel too. Thank you.
Well, good luck to Rossi. We're all rooting for you. Yeah, I think more recently I've been looking, I suppose, to the SNP. I've been looking to the SNP and saying, well, we're waiting for this. We're waiting on you to do something. We're waiting on you to call the independence referendum number 2. Please hurry up and get on with it. More recently, though, I've been thinking, well, the SNP has got a difficult job here. It's got a lot to do, particularly Nicola Sturgeon. She's got these negotiations to have. She's got a lot on her plate. And also, it's really important that she is able to say at the end of the negotiations that she's done everything she possibly can to acknowledge 2 votes. The vote that Scotland voted to stay in the EU, and the vote that, as much as we don't like it, that Scotland voted to stay within the UK. And she needs to be able to say she's tried to make sure that those 2 votes are acknowledged. I personally can't see a way of making that happen, but you know, she's First Minister. I'm hoping that she can do that. However, I want to see independence. I don't any longer think that it's the SNP's job to do everything. While they're doing that very important business, it's down to us. We can campaign. We can talk to everybody we know. We can even reboot the Yes movement. It doesn't need to be the SNP, although we will need SNP support and Green support and support from anywhere we can get. But we can do it. We have the power in our hands to start that movement again, to start that campaign again, and then when the SNP have done their utmost to do what they can to negotiate, and that has potentially failed, they can then come along. But it's absolutely in our hands and our responsibility to do something as well.
Richard's absolutely right. The First Minister and the Scottish Government do need time to examine and exhaust every option for Scotland's continued relationship with Europe. And that means every option short of independence. That's the cross-party consensus that we got. I'm of the opinion that we will exhaust all of those options, and the people of Scotland will be faced with a choice between 2 unions. In that choice, I'm fairly confident which one will be made, but that comes after time, and that comes after the responsible work that any government has to undertake, that the current Scottish Government has undertaken with a mandate from across the Parliament. But during that time, there's no reason for you all to not be out campaigning for independence, for all of us to be out campaigning for independence. Like I said earlier, there's a massive distinction between calling for a second referendum and campaigning for independence. The SNP's been campaigning for independence for 80 years. For most of that 80 years, it was not calling for an immediate referendum. It was campaigning for independence. We can all campaign for independence now. And Lisa made a really, really important point about the debate and the discussion and the diversity within the Yes movement. One of the biggest strengths, if not the biggest strength of the Yes movement, was its diversity. We all disagreed on what an independent Scotland might look like in some minor ways and some major ways. Alyn and I disagree on some really significant bits of policy and agree on some other really significant bits of policy. That diversity of vision was a huge strength, because there are some people who will never vote for the Green vision of independence, or for the SNP's vision for independence, or for the Radical Independence Campaign's vision, or for Business for Scotland's vision. But there are people as well who will vote for each of them. And it was about making the argument to those people that an independent Scotland is what you make it. Since the referendum, that has moved away a little. There's been a bit of hostility within the Yes movement towards diversity, towards debate and discussion about what kind of position we take. That can't happen. We won't win next time if the only thing that we go in with is the Scottish Government's white paper. I campaigned and defended the white paper in a whole bunch of different situations, but I'm a Green and I campaigned for the Green Yes vision of independence, which was different. It's really, really important we keep that diversity up. We get out there, we campaign for independence, and we all campaign for the vision of an independent Scotland that we believe in, because that's the most effective thing to do. Not to knock on someone's door and cite figures and statistics, talk about economic models, to tell them why you're voting for independence, why you, as someone who lives in their community, who lives a life like them, are voting for independence and why they should too. Because it's personal to each and every one of us. We've all got a slightly different vision for what Scotland can be, but we all believe it can be better by putting our future in our hands. That's the core argument. Beyond that, we can disagree on everything. That's the point. We disagree, someone wins, that's the choice that's made. At the moment, we can't make that choice. We shouldn't be afraid of the diversity.
Yeah, I suspect I actually agree with Ross on more things than we disagree, but maybe that's one for over a pint. From my perspective, I mean, in terms of how do we reboot the Yes movement, what's stopping you? Our job right now is to be visible, it's to be open, it's to allow people to come to us to have the discussion, it's to share information. Now, we saw this during the European referendum. There were a number of people in Scotland who voted to leave. Now, I did 40 public meetings like this up and down the length and breadth of the country. We published the Wee Blue Book, which actually got facts and information to people. And in my experience, people went really quickly from leave to remain. Once you went through the, but what about this? Well, that's the truth about this. But what about this? That's the truth about that. We're crowdfunding a new edition of the Wee Blue Book because we need to explain the European reality to people, because they're assuredly not getting it from an awful lot of other politicians and people involved in politics. So visibility, being out there, letting people come to us and have the discussion, paying attention. To see some of you have signed up to hopefully my email bulletins about the actual information coming through. I'll be producing a weekly update on Brexit stuff in order to inform the debate. And I'm relying on you to inform people about the reality of what's going on. So we've got a huge job to do. But the people are up for that discussion in a way that a lot of people weren't up for that discussion previously. And I certainly will be voting for your Doug, Lisa, and take that as an honest promise. I'm after your vote in the deputy thing as well, so it's I must do. But I would pay tribute, and I would pay tribute to the work that Lisa and our Westminster group do, because I think it would tip me into a black mood on a daily basis. I mean, the rescue dog winning the Westminster Dog of the Year will be a great thing, but I'd sooner win the Trident vote. And a lot of people in Scotland are looking at the reality of what no actually meant. And Scotland, by any yardstick, clearly rejected the renewal of the Trident weapon system. And yet it happened. That is an absolutely unarguable fact that people can work out for themselves. So they want to have these discussions, they want to have that conversation. We just need to let them come to us.
I'm afraid to say that I have to close the meeting now, unless we maybe have one more question. Go on. Stand up.
I can see why you'd be worried. I think the Scottish Parliament has now bedded into the consciousness of the people of Scotland in a way that it actually has an awful lot more legitimacy than Westminster does. Now, within the UK Constitution, there's no argument. The Westminster Parliament is sovereign, the Scottish Parliament is not. Now, I find that offensive, which is why I'm a nationalist. And there's an awful lot more people in Scotland agreeing with that perspective than the other one. So in terms of abolition of Holyrood, it is theoretically possible within the UK Constitution. That's why we're nationalists, because I believe in the sovereignty of the people of Scotland. So that's a hypothetical worry, and we make sure that doesn't happen by making sure we persuade people to make sure that they won't be able to do that.
You're absolutely right. One of the most exciting. One of the most exciting things about independence for me is this idea we are getting to create a new nation, and part of that is about creating the founding values of that nation, which is why the Greens propose a written constitution and a convention that involves all sections of Scottish society coming together to draft and then approve that constitution, embedding our rights. And we can be really imaginative with that. So, for example, we can ban nuclear weapons from ever being in Scottish territory in the constitution. We can give people a right to food within the constitution. That's a right that very few people have, actually, across the world in national constitutions. There's a huge amount that we can do there. And that's an amazing opportunity for us. For a start, we can embed the permanency of the Scottish Parliament, because you're right, that can be dissolved by Westminster. It technically can. I don't think they would, because I think they know just as much as we do that if they tried to do that, they would absolutely guarantee a landslide win for independence. A landslide win for independence. Westminster has taken a semi-suicidal approach towards dealing with Scotland. It almost seems like it's trying to destroy the Union half the time. That would be trying to destroy the Union all the time. They can technically do it. I think they know just as much as we do. If they did, we'd win.
I think, as you've heard, I mean, my view is clearly that they can do it. It would be a stupid person that would say they would never do it, because you never know. If you listen to David Cameron and Theresa May subsequently, they portray themselves as defenders of the Union. The thing that they want to do above all else is make sure the UK exists. But yet you look at their actions leading up to the referendum, their actions after that, and Theresa May's actions in the few short weeks since she got the job, and you would have to doubt that. You would have to come to the conclusion that they either don't much care about the Union, and certainly don't much care about Scotland's position in it, or, if you're a conspiracy theorist, and I am, that they actively want to destroy it. So, but I think Ross is right, and I think if they did that, I mean, if they actually refused to give us a referendum, I think it would be over. If they went further than that and tried to disband the Parliament, I think that would be I think it would probably be a revolution. But, you know, bring it on.
That leads straight to UEI, because that seems like that.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it's aye, maybe it's not.
Listen, again, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's turned up tonight. There was a lot of people who couldn't come tonight because it's a holiday period. We will be having more events like this. Just watch the page. But again, what we have to do right now is thank our panel here. So, Richard Walker. I think you should actually just stand up as well, because we're going to have to stand up for Alyn anyway. So, another round of applause for Richard. For Ross. Can we be upstanding, please? And for Alyn. probably we will have another meeting in about 2 months' time. I've been chatting to some of the members from the other groups in the close vicinity, and we'll be organising some maybe South Lanarkshire events. Keep going on to the Yes EK website. We'll update it with the other events that I mentioned. But please do keep in touch, and thank you everybody for coming again. Thank you. Oh, and photographs with the tea ladies here.
We have one final round of thanks for our chair and for the Yes East Kilbride organising team.
Thank you. have your patience. Oh, wait a minute. I've not even said. We might have still more folk on here. Right, where they are. I'm going to that's unclogged. Oh, I'm on an iPad. Guys. Right, what's what? That's that camera. Edit. Let's turn it. Done. Hello. Audio. Hello. I don't know if there's anybody still there. I was also doing a live stream to Facebook using this, and it was really interesting. Got a lot of viewers, Paul, yeah. But unfortunately, at the beginning of this live stream, the cable was broken. Didn't notice. We got it changed, Paul, didn't we? Paul's trying to get out of this. We got it changed and we got it fixed, right? So, all okay then. So, folks, we're going to Saturday to Glasgow for that.
We'll be there, definitely there for Saturday.
You'll be there?
Expecting a fantastic tournament. I present today with the Knights tournament, then we're on to London Masters.
I was astonished how many people were here tonight. Really,
need a bigger hall next time.
Need a bigger hall, how good is that? And I was speaking to somebody just there who voted no. That was very interesting. She just wanted the link to the live stream, right? But Michael was speaking to her. So that's not giving her the reasons why I voted yes. So poor thing didn't get word in, but she was wanting off anyway. So yeah, Saturday, come along. Bring your mobile phone, start live streaming, right, to your page, or if you admin or edit a page, then get the Facebook pages manager app, right? You can select which one you want to live stream to and do it. Just do it, right? We want to create a noise. We want to create a noise, Paul, don't we? Right? And this is the beginning. Get to understand this technology. I'm learning all the time, and I've only done quite a few hundred. Thank you for supporting the crowdfunding if anybody's still watching this. Right, done it again. Right, keep supporting new Scottish media. We need your support, really important, because the BBC are just bollocks, man. Right,
so most important message is get behind and keep supporting. And as the guys were saying right during the speech, it's going to everybody that's watching this to continue to get that Yes campaign rekindled. Back out the street, speak to people, get the stall set up and speak to everybody around you. Because, a lot of people that voted for the last time are certainly probably rethinking after the recent events. There's the time to speak to them. I mean, as the guy says, don't go, it's okay, I told you so. Speak to people, get the message across.
Absolutely, Paul. You need to get re-energised here. When Article 50 is triggered by the Tories, right, 2 years maximum, right, before we get kicked out of Europe. Not everybody, even Yes supporters, don't look favourably on Europe, but hey ho, right, we've got to get out of, we've got to get away from Westminster, whatever, right, so get activated, get back to your local groups, get energised, right, we've got another long slog ahead of us, and we've just got to do it.
And just on that note, guys, obviously, Yes East Kilbride, get in contact with us, join us on the page, we've got a lot more events happening. If you need any advice about how to make the campaign a bit more successful in your area, we managed to turn an area which we expected to vote no into a yes town. We overturned that, and we can certainly help you in your area. Good luck.
Okay, thank you. On that note, we've all said goodbye. Cheers, Paul, right? And good night, and peace and love to East Kilbride.